Welcome. Here you are. Thank you. No, you're gonna be. Let's check. Maybe we should.
I give you my back.
I will.
Oh, I like this. Oh, yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm going to ask one thing. Johnny, up there, can I see you? Wave to me. Because there's no timer down here, I'm just going to make it your responsibility to make sure that I'm on time and everything is fine, okay? And we've also got a clock over there, just so that so you have your lunch at the right time and... Exactly. Perfect. They do this on TED all the time. Okay, so this is me. This is the first time that I've done this presentation as me on my own and not with a big backing of an Ogilvy. So I was there for 17 years. So this is all very new to me. It's out of my comfort zone, not speaking, but the fact that I have my own story now and I'm not part of a big organization. It's almost kind of like the intrapreneur is now an entrepreneur. Who am I? So I don't know whether any of you guys heard Dave Trott speak here a year ago or 2 years ago, but basically he's been my mentor since I was 19 years old. He was my first boss when I was at Gold Greenies Trott. I was with him for 5 years. And he always used to call me an irresistible force against immovable objects. So that will give you some kind of understanding. I know I look very sweet and innocent, but believe me, once the train is going, it's not stopping. So, and that's one of the kind of characteristics that you need, I guess, for being within innovation or doing anything new that's never been done before, because it's not an easy space, because it's never been done before. So I'm going to try and give you some kind of understanding as to how I've gone about doing it, with giving you maybe 12 different pointers that I hope will help you if you're going to embark in this space, just give you a few different ideas as to what you can do. So out with the old, you remember these, don't you? Or maybe you still have them, I don't know, but I remember them very clearly. So I go back to working in advertising since kind of like the late 80s with Dave Trott. So I was at Gold Greenies Trott for 5 years, Simons Palmer for 9 years, before going to Ogilvy for 17 years. So I didn't just grow up a digital native. I was in the very early days of a full service agency with a media department, above the line, below the line, and there was nothing like what we're encountering now. So my brief originally with Ogilvy was to bring them into the 21st century. It was moving them from an analog world into a digital world, but more from a kind of digital transformation. So making things quicker, better, stronger, faster. So it was nothing, it wasn't banners, it wasn't pop-ups, it wasn't anything like that. It was understanding business and then affecting some changes to make business better, because I understood the business of advertising because I'd been in it for so long. So initially at Ogilvy, it was looking at doing a workflow system, a finance system, a digital asset management system, digitizing all their archives going back to the 50s, kind of 10,000 tapes that were in storage, digitizing all of them. So kind of real, roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. And not that I knew what I was doing, I literally make it up as I go along, and that's the other thing. There's no perfect. You have to kind of get out of your head that you're going to fail, because you have to learn. So if you fail, it's a good thing, because then you're learning from it. So in the early days, there was a lot to learn in terms of moving from an analog to a digital world. And it was getting rid of tapes and couriers and starting to do digital delivery. So the copper pipes had now been kind of laid and set, and you could do big commercials through these copper pipes. So I would be the one, people would be phoning me up and saying, where's my tape? And I'd say, well, I haven't sent it. And they'd go screaming at me saying, you're going to make me miss my air date, and I'm holding you responsible. And I would say, just go to your post house and pull it down. That sounds normal to us now. Download it, upload it. But then they wanted a physical tape. So doing these things from a very early stage has never been easy, and if it's easy, then everyone would do it. So if there's anyone in the audience that has that kind of personality that doesn't take, if someone says no to them, they do it anyway, then this is the perfect kind of environment for you to test and learn. So that was kind of like in the old days. And also I take my hat off to Ogilvy. Working at GGT and Simons Palmer, they were very different agencies, kind of lots of people who have very similar personalities to mine, maverick type personalities. And Ogilvy went ahead and hired me, and when I first went there, I kind of thought, oh my God, I just stick out like a sore thumb. They had meetings after meetings, and I'm all about doing, and I would have meetings in a corridor, literally just grab someone and just to make things happen. So I think the first lesson is don't be frightened about hiring someone that's not like yourself. You'll find something about that person that can help you do something differently, because if you keep hiring like yourself, there will not be a change, because they'll just do what you do. So, understanding emotional intelligence, I used to do emotional intelligence testing on all of the team. So therefore, my strengths were, say, Gemma's weaknesses, and Gemma's strengths were my weaknesses. So you need to be very understanding that to affect change and to do innovative ideas, you have to understand that you won't be good at everything, and sometimes you have to use other people and understand their strengths to have them go ahead and do it. So don't be frightened about hiring different. It's a good thing with this fast-paced technology changes. So what I did after I did all of the kind of the grunt work with moving from analog to digital, I started to see a whole world of interesting things like mobile and gaming, and I'd send emails around saying, guys, there's something called Facebook, you really need to pay attention. I mean, I may be going back about 14, 15 years, and people would say, stop spamming me. So it's not everyone's want to know, to be at the forefront of all these different things happening. But what I started to understand was I could never know everything that was going on just by looking around. I had to develop some kind of process and system. So I developed something called these semesters of learning. And it was 6 months of very intense learning on one topic only. So I started with streaming about 10 years ago. And within 6 months, I used to see 10 to 15 different streaming companies every single week, globally. I would put it out there. I would say, if you're doing streaming, then come to me. I'm doing that now with virtual reality, because I have a virtual reality show that's going to be for 10,000 people in London in April. So I pick a topic, and then I would literally just go hell for leather in understanding everything about that topic. So first one was streaming, see 10 to 15 different streaming companies every single week. Everything I do, everywhere I go, I'd go to a streaming media event, and I would know no one and I would know nothing, and it's an uncomfortable space to be. So what would happen was that I would learn very quickly what was going on, and then I'd share it. Whatever I learn, I then would share. And then these semesters of learning would then start to become really intrinsic in people understanding that space that much better. So you see who is out there, you then attach it to business. So there was a brand that had a problem. It was the Ford chairman speaking to all his staff, and it was that big and pixelated and buffering. And I'd seen a startup from Australia who could deliver full HD quality stream to your desktop immediately. So sold it into Ford, which meant we had a new revenue stream because we'd never done internal comms before. And we produced the film. It wasn't a 30-second ad, it was a 90-second film that went to 22,000 desktops in 19 countries in 5 languages. So asking the TV department to do that at that time, 10 years ago, it was difficult. But you have to literally, every semester has to have a tangible case study to show that it's been done. So therefore, once it's been done once, you can then offer it again and again and again. That change agent piece, that's how you innovate and do something new. It's not you doing it all the time, it's getting the people who have done old things to try doing something new, and then once it's done once, they then understand how to do it with new partners. And then at the end of the semester, you have a lab day, a little bit like this, where you have speakers speaking, exhibitors exhibiting, and then you close down that semester, and then you start anew. Okay? And so this is a film of one of our last ones before the labs was closed down for Future Retail.
Ogilvy Labs is the innovation facilitator inside Ogilvy and Mather Group. Every 6 months we pick a particular research topic to focus our interest, new conferences, find new partners, get new insights and pull everything together.
So Ogilvy sponsored Unbound this year, and we've done so when we brought our clients here because it's all part of our learning and developing an inspiration program that we run within Ogilvy Labs. There's something of interest for everybody. So the clients who come along, all of them have just said, you know, I was really inspired by this. It's been a great opportunity for me to connect with people. So there's a chance to connect, a chance to learn, a chance to play with some new stuff. And that's been great. And that's what Ogilvy Labs is all about. And that's what our terms of learning are all about.
So the semester is not just about researching insights and finding startups to work with. It's about educating, inspiring staff and clients. From building a website full of research insights, to having a C-suite level dinner for our top end clients, to having internal talks from the retail experts within Ogilvy, to doing workshops at Social Media Week. It's extremely broad, and it's not just one event, Unbound, at the end of the semester.
There's a lot of talk today about multi-channel. Sort of traditional bricks and mortar businesses are trying to serve their customers in an online world. I think as time goes on, we need to move away from that thinking and look at a consumer.
So we've got a relationship with Ogilvy which goes back many years, and if you look at the retail environment, it's going through a massive change. We know a number of things that have happened this Christmas with the Black Friday weekend where people have left the high street and gone online, and retail has got to come back to an experience. And that's not just touch and feeling a product you're going to buy, it's actually a whole engagement experience.
Overall, it's been a massive success for Ogilvy because we've been able to find out information across this semester of future retail, to educate, inspire. We've been able to position Ogilvy as thought leaders within this space. We've also been able to have relationships with new clients, new business, John Lewis Labs, for instance, in a different way. It's been really, really useful for our existing clients who are in that retail space to see us more than just advertising. They can come to us with many kind of issues and we can find the right solution, because we now know that space that much better. So you can start, if I've been doing these semesters of learning for the last 10 years, and I started off with streaming and there'd be 2 a year, so streaming, gaming, mobile, social, big data, behavior, 3D printing, and the list goes on. Now it's bitcoins and blockchains, and you cannot know everything, and you cannot know every single person in those spaces without doing that kind of research. And if a client wants to understand how innovation works, they need to pay for it. This isn't something you just give away as a, as part of the scope of work. This is something that is really in depth, and it needs to be paid for in a new way. Find a way, make a way, really good at this. And you have to have so much tenacity and work with the right people, because it's not an easy space, because it's not been done before. So when a client says, oh, can you measure success of that? I don't know. We don't even know whether we can do it. So normally we would take just a small little percentage of the money, maybe 20% of the budget, and trial it. Rather than put the whole lot into something and then go bigger, better the next year once it has trialled. So there was something that I did probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and only now has someone come back to me and said, can we do something on this particular topic? And I'd gone to some random event with random people, and there was a particular guy there that did a soundscape in this museum, and I got talking to him and put his name and number in my black book, literally of thousands of names and numbers. And he was doing something with sound, and about 2 years later, so creators were working on Fanta, and they wanted to do something with mosquito sound, which is this sound that you put on street corners to get kids away from that area. And that because only they can hear this sound, and apparently when you get older, the sound then starts to stop. You can't hear it. So I called up this guy, Martin, and I said, can you come in and take a brief? I think it's something that is right up your street. And he said, I don't want to work with agencies. Agencies take the piss out of you. They don't pay you on time. I always have to wait 100 days to even get any money. And I said, no, the position that I am in now, I will handhold any new suppliers, and we'll work very closely with you. We will collaborate with you. It's not us telling him what to do. It is a collaboration. So basically, cut a long story short, and I'm not going to play the Fanta film, but I'm going to talk you through it. It was where kids could communicate with each other with this certain mosquito sound that only they could hear, and adults couldn't. So it was an app on their phone that they could have a conversation with each other in the classroom, and the teacher wouldn't know about it. So we stopped downloading at like the millionth, we stopped counting at the millionth download. It was such a success. And that was 7 years ago. And about a month ago, someone said to me, oh, I wonder if you know anything about mosquito sound. So these things always come back, but you have to trial and test them first, because no one's done it before. And that really is kind of true innovation.
Phantom.
That's the film. Open-minded and open-hearted. You've got to be open-minded and open-hearted to work with these people. It's not like, in the old days of just doing TV press and posters, where you only need to know directors or photographers or illustrators. I just mentioned to you the enormous amounts of people that are out there doing interesting things. You've got to have relationships with them. You've got to give them a cup of tea when they come in. You've got to understand what it is that they do. Take a little elevator pitch so that you can then be their voice within your organisation, to then say, when they have a problem, you can say, you can make the connection and say, this is really interesting if you go and speak to this person. Those things are how the new world is working with creativity and tech. Okay, so you can't just magic these things up. There's a lot of legwork that goes into it. Find the rough diamonds. So Johnny was talking before about the innovations person at his place. That person, Will Harvey, was my original rough diamond. And I set up this program at Ogilvy about 8 years ago. Now, obviously, it's stopped since the labs have stopped. But what was happening was that they were employing the same people over and over again. And I was actually quite interested in the kids that were being expelled from school, because they were actually interesting me in, they were becoming entrepreneurs of the future. And they were playing and touching and feeling and disrupting. And so I set up a system whereby it's a diamond shape. The bottom of the diamond, you have Ideas Foundation. They work with all the schools in Hackney, Tower Hamlets and Greenwich, very kind of deprived areas in London. And we asked them to feed us all the kids that were about to be expelled or disruptive. We would bring them in, we would show them an environment that they didn't even know existed. They thought they were going to work at a Tesco's checkout for their future. And then we would say, stay on this road and go to either Ravensbourne, which is like an art college that does 3D printing and fashion and motion graphics and tons of stuff, or School Communication Arts. And then when they were on their second year, we would speed date them to then work their final year with us at Ogilvy. And we would pay them London living wage, because again, to move away from only people who had money, who could afford to do internships. And they worked with us for a year, 12 weeks in the summer. A brief would go out saying all the kids are in, and they would literally, they'd be hacking at Kindles and God knows what else, and turning around some amazing stuff. Then they'd go back to school in the September, and the deal was that they had to teach their teachers, because I was fed up with the teachers saying what industry wanted, and they hadn't worked in industry for 20 years. Then they'd come back to us at Christmas, come back to us at Easter, and then we would look to employ. So Will Harvey was our first rough diamond employed at Ogilvy. We made up his job title and his job role. There wasn't such a thing as a creative technologist when we first did it. Now there is. So it's the constant need to innovate, and just HR said, well, where does he fit on the bracket of, is he a planner? I'd say, well, yeah, sometimes. Is he a creative? Is he an account handler? He could be anything he wanted to be. So it was just really smashing those kind of stereotypes. And now he's running innovation at Johnny's company. So the rough diamonds are, for me, the key, just a few of them, to get in, to work in your environments, to just disrupt it a little, to think differently. Otherwise, you'll just get the same results again and again. There is a way to measure all this stuff that isn't always just about the spreadsheet, she says, since being canned at Ogilvy. But that's because the spreadsheet is crucial to the large organisations that are having to report to shareholders. But there's other ways you can measure. So yes, there is revenue. So with the semesters of learning and how the labs worked, we could measure by reputation, because everything that came out of there was something that was tangible, that could then be put forward for awards and was talked about. So reputation was a big one. Recruitment of new diverse talent, rough diamond. Relationships, that's the black book of thousands. Anyone's got any problem, we will be able to know exactly who to turn to because we have a relationship with them. It's not like a yellow pages. You actually have seen the whites of someone's eyes and you can do business with them. Retention of existing staff. So Gemma was about to leave, who you saw in the video. She was working on Ogilvy American Express. But she stayed because she could then work in the labs. So it was something that everyone was very proud of. And responsibility, so I'll give you an example of giving back. So I call them my 6 R's. They're very tangible ways in which you can measure success that aren't always just on the spreadsheet with revenue. Be honest and trust your instinct. Love this. This kept me going on quite a few occasions, I can promise you, and it might resonate with some of you more than others. But I was asked to do something with the BBC where they wanted to know why is it that we were working with all of these startups and digital independents, and the BBC couldn't work with them. And so he said, can you come and chair a committee for us, an online advisory board, with people up and down the country, like about 20 digital independent companies, and this was about 5 years ago, and find out why they're not working with us and how we can work with them. So the first meeting that he had, there was a McKinsey-style PowerPoint presentation for 2 hours that we had to listen to that we'll never get back in our life, as to the Q2RF or whatever of the BBC, and basically it was all about them selling themselves or saying who they were, and they didn't even listen to why the others weren't working with them. And so at the end of the meeting, I basically stood up and just said, if I have to, I'm never going to do this again. I'll leave here and I won't do this, I won't chair this. But if you want to know an honest response, don't ever do a PowerPoint presentation with these things about the BBC again if you want to know why these independents aren't working with you. Have a conversation. I spoke to them all beforehand. They're not working with you because you don't pay them on time. They're not working with you because their business goes under because they're not being paid on time and their margins are so small and they go out of business. You take too long with your procurement process. It is a nightmare. Change it. And there were about a list of 6 things that I just reeled off, and all the others were frightened because that's their bread and butter. I didn't need to be. But sometimes you just have to do the right thing and just be honest and say, it's not working and these are the reasons why. The future is bright. Now there's something called, I don't know whether any of you have seen on YouTube, there's something called Humans Need Not Apply. It's an interesting video that probably you would enjoy, and it does paint a little bit of doom and gloom that the bots are taking over and we're all going to be out of jobs. But if you are an optimist, you can see way past that and know that the jobs will just be different. They just might not be the same jobs that you're doing today. That's all. So if you are optimistic and you are looking and seeing all these different things, you become much more aware of a new way of working, a new creative way of working that will embrace so many even thought was possible. But if you have a negative standpoint, you're never going to see it. Okay? That's kind of how I felt about Trump. But, so it can only get better. So for me, if you are an optimist, the future is bright, even when you see that Humans Need Not Apply film. And it's bright as well because the UN have set these goals, and I think these are amazing for any business. We've started to notice a trend, and especially when I was judging Cannes Lion Innovation Awards this year and Eurobest Innovation Awards this year, a lot of the companies that we're judging are all businesses that are being set up that are very interesting, but they have a kind of a sustainable goal model where they can make money, but by doing good. So this isn't charity. This isn't an NGO, and it isn't a corporate social responsibility. I guess the nearest example would be like a Tom's Shoes, but there are loads of examples now. We're judging them literally every single year now with the awards. But they're businesses that are being set up, and they could be set up by brands easily or agencies easily to do good but make money. And there's lots of guys who are, there's a guy called Sir Ronald Cohen who talks about sustainable businesses quite often, and that's quite an interesting space to be in. Oh, where's the iPad gone? The time. Johnny?
Oh,
how long?
I thought somebody stole it.
How long? But it started from 0 now, hasn't it?
No. 55 seconds.
Oh my God, shit. Okay,
Sorry.
very, very quickly, I'm running through. Escape from your comfort zone. Go to places where you know no one and nothing. You're seeing all your friends here and you're catching up. That's not good. I know you're seeing us on the stage and hopefully we're inspiring, but you've got to be in places where you feel uncomfortable. There's no other way to do it. Think like a startup. So me now, I'm an entrepreneur, no longer an intrapreneur. Really difficult when you have to think, I need to go and buy my own Mac, and then I, open it up and it's like, hello IT, and there's no one around me to give me any help. But that's where you rely on your network to get things done. By being decent and kind with other people, you will then get so much more back. I'm telling you that now because things change all the time. Greatest gift you can give someone is by paying it forward. So we did something within the labs, within the Rough Diamond scheme, where we gave school communication arts money within the labs R&D pot that we'd earned ourselves, and the money went to for their first student to have like a scholarship. His name's Ross Bailey, and he had this idea to open these pop-up shops, and it was such a lovely, cool idea. This was about 4 years ago or so. So we enabled him to do that by paying for sponsoring him in this school. And then he had this idea that he wanted to actually do the pop-up shop. So Labs gave him $2,500 to do it. And then this is his talk.
Was there for a year, came up with a few different ideas, and the summer of 2012, once I had left this place, Queen's Diamond Jubilee, national moment, I decided I want to take a shop and I wanted to make an idea happen. So we called Nicole up and I sort of said, look, Nicole, I've got this idea. You're a mentor at this school. Fancy lending me a little bit of cash? And she gave us a couple of £1,000. And in 10 days, we found this store, rented it out, convinced the landlord and haggled our way in, and designed our own t-shirt range. And the idea was rock and roll, Queen with a rebellious twist. So this is the shop 10 days after we had the idea. I'm going to skip this video because we don't have too much time.
Sounds familiar.
And this is what people sort of said about it. Queen tat I actually might buy. Anyway, 2 days in, I get a call from Buckingham Palace. It wasn't the Queen saying that she was going to order some t-shirts. It was the Queen's t-shirt police saying that actually you can't sell these t-shirts. So I did what anyone in this room would do, with the risk of being sent to the tower, and hid all these t-shirts in the basement of the shop and continued to sell them. And what we did is when people walked in, we asked them for their business cards, because obviously the Queen's t-shirt police are going to have business cards. So people would come in, show the business card, we'd go, okay, that's fine. We'd smuggle downstairs and sell these t-shirts like Prohibition. Anyway, I digress. What we found doing this store is as many people that were coming to get these prohibited tees and smuggle them out also wanted to get their hands on the shop. So after launching that store, I went and I helped some friends launch some stores of themselves, and Appear Here was born. Today we match entrepreneurs like me and my mate to international brands like Apple and Marc Jacobs, and we help them find spaces from high street stores, locations like the Box Park, to luxury destinations like the Burlington Arcade. And they book them all on a beautiful online marketplace where they can find space, pay, transact, do the entire process.
So many of those kind of success stories. Now, if Ogilvy or any one of your companies, that is the future in terms of spotting these startups, spotting entrepreneurial people, and then maybe putting some money into their businesses and helping them on their way. I'm sure if we would have done that with Ross, and I can give you so many that have come through that I've seen, we would be very, very wealthy people, because they are doing incredible stuff. And you get, over the years, you start to get an idea as to who's good, bad, indifferent. And then that's me. Thank you so much.
Any questions? Any questions? Something about marketing, within the marketing? We have, can I have the mic and just, can somebody toss the mic up there, or could you shout?
Or shout.
Shout.
It feels good.
Oh, there's a mic. Great. Oh, the other side. Okay.
Thanks for the presentation. This was amazing.
Thank
I have
you.
a question about the rough diamond. You mentioned that at the bottom you pick out the people who are like about to be expelled and stuff like that. What happens with when you go up? Is like the internship in that diamond, is that a structure or is just like a symbolic name?
As you go up, I mean, the lab team are always there, and there were mentors within Ogilvy, so we would send notes out to say who's interested to mentor these kids, and we would just give our time. So yeah, within the organisation, I mean, there's 1,800 people in just the London office with 10 group companies. There were always people who wanted to do that much more, and they would help throughout their process of them going through that diamond shape.
All right, thanks. And also I'm interested, how was it funded? Like if you can give out some ideas, the whole lab.
Say that again, I didn't hear.
How was it funded? Like, did you have like companies or sponsors or how?
Well, the whole thing with the labs is that they only paid for 3 people's salary. We would make money in ingenious entrepreneurial ways. So Rory Sutherland, who's our vice chairman, this was 10 years ago when I set the lab up, when I first saw him and heard him speak, I just thought it was amazing. So I said to him, do you mind if I act as your agent and I can get you speaking gigs at TED or wherever I started to get him speaking gigs, can I negotiate your money, and then any money that I get for you to speak comes into our lab pot? He said, yeah, absolutely. So Rory was our first kind of cash cow of money coming into, and it was a small pot, nothing massive, but he was our first kind of way. And then we decided to do a book. Not that we'd ever published a book before, but we published a book for Rory because when he spoke, people would say, has he published? And I'd say, well, no, but he has done things in Spectator magazine and Brand Republic. So I thought, well, how difficult can it be to just weave a story through things that are already out there? So we then published a book. So me being the publisher, I could then offer him out to speak and then say, oh, you've got 500 delegates. Do you want 500 books at £6, at the publisher's cost? And so then more money would come into the pot. And that's how we were able to put money and not ask permission into all these different things without doing a PowerPoint presentation. So it was good because the CEO, pretty much at the time, Paul O'Donnell, allowed me to make it up as I went along. He didn't micromanage me. It was different, obviously, towards the end, different management, different people have different styles and different wants and different needs. But it allowed me at least for those 16 years to get incredible understanding. Any other questions?
More questions? No.
No?
Well, I guess that's it. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.